Welcome to Brutally Honest. Today, our program is a bit different, and we have three guests today. I mean, two. Me being host. The first is our Imam of Mubarak Mosque, Usama Rahman. And then we have Ahmed Sohail, who is also a producer for this program and as well as a very avid, learned person on the different subjects matters, including politics as well as religious studies as well. So, welcome Imam Sahib for this program, and welcome Ahmed to
Thank you
this
so
program.
much. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having us. Jazakallah.
Okay, so today we're continuing on the theme of the same how Islam can be seen fit in the United States or in America in the year 2026 and beyond. With that theme, we're going to be continuing. Last week, we discussed about women's rights on different programs. We have touched certain thorny issues like LGBTQ, and we have also talked about why women are not allowed to marry the people of the book and why men are allowed to marry, these types of topics. Today, continuing the same theme on women's rights, on inheritance and all that, we have covered somewhat. But today, the question that I'm proposing to discuss, and we are going to be discussing this, is that how does Islamic feminism or Muslim women's advocacy differentiate itself from mainstream Western feminist movements, particularly regarding notions of autonomy, family structure, and spirituality? That's our first question. We're going to tackle the second question later.
Yeah, sure. If I can jump into it first.
This
So
question
again-
with Imam Saab.
Yeah. For sure. So I think first we have to kind of define what Islamic feminism actually is. And it's not about, these changing social trends. It's something that's rooted in something, far greater as we understand it. And that is the framework of Islamic sources, though. So the guidance that we have in the Holy Quran, prophetic traditions and teachings. And when you think about it, as an entirety, it's a holistic approach. It's not about, the I, what's good for me. It's, what's good for us, what's good for the society in general. And when you think about that, today's day and age or just modern feminism, when you think about this word, it's really about, me as an individual and my rights and my ability to choose what I want and what I desire. But the way that Islam looks at it is that, yes, we all are afforded freedoms. However, with that, there is some, it's within an ethical framework. And that ethical framework is provided to us by divine guidance, as we Muslims believe. And so when you look at the Holy Quran, repeatedly it mentions both men and women and how, they're on equal standing. One verse of the Holy Quran in chapter 9 states that believing men, believing women, they are friends and allies of one another. So the point there is that, we're supposed to be helping each other and doing our part in building a successful and beneficial society around us. So definitely there is that, concept of, women's rights. But the reality is that Islam has afforded women rights just like it afforded the men those rights, 1400 years ago, be it through education, making choices, having the ability to live your life the way that you dictate it to be, but within, again, that framework that is provided. So ultimately, the question should be, what is this freedom leading me to? What's the end result? And so Islam tells us that we should always be looking towards that end result or that target. And that end result or target in Islam, which is for both men and women, is regarding spiritual growth and peace. So if you can find peace in this life through those freedoms, and if you can spiritually grow through those freedoms, then those are beneficial freedoms. Otherwise, they are something which are counter to what God desires, because God is the one that knows our nature, our very being. And so the point is that they should lead to something beneficial, which is peace in society and also spiritual growth. And so ultimately, that is finding God for us as believers. And so the roles of men and women, their responsibilities and rights are present, their freedoms are afforded to them. But at times, there are specific responsibilities or roles on women or on men that are not for the other gender. And instead of looking at it as a competition or subjugation, it should be looked at as complementary roles, right? That we are, again, the whole first thing I said about working together to build construct a positive, beneficial society. So it's about complementing one another rather than competing with one another in that sense. And
So
women
in other
do not
words,
have
you think
passive
that,
roles. Yeah.
right. So in other words, you think that, well, not think, but in other words, that we see in mainstream Western media, and Ahmed, you can jump in if you want to, uh, that we see as Samar Rahman has mentioned that competing roles, we shouldn't be competing it. I mean, it's a collective effort. Right now, what we see is that the rights that they portray in mostly Western feminist movements are more into individualism rather than collaboration or collective effort. And it's more of a political nature rather than and the actual substance, in my opinion. What do you think? Do you think my understanding is right? And both of you can jump in, or am I wrong on that?
So I'll let you speak. I think I was talking for too long.
Oh no, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Mhm.
I think you are right. The point I was making there at the end is that, some people think that women in Islam are given these passive roles and, men are the actual ones that are living their life up to the fullest. But the reality is that women are encouraged to pursue education, actually not even encouraged, it's like a demand. It's a part of faith for them to increase in their knowledge, be it secular or spiritual or religious, to pursue those professional careers, especially when it deals with careers that are for the benefit of humanity, community leadership, intellectual development, all these things, recognizing that, there's worth to every life, but also there's a worth to the family unit. And that's very important, integral, which modern feminism has kind of forgotten, or maybe even not forgotten, but, tried to do away with that, to some length. And that needs to be understood, that motherhood and the family unit itself is probably the most important thing in our lives. When we're on our deathbed, we're not going to remember, I did this march, I got this job, and I progressed up that career ladder. It's about, your family, your friends, your interactions, your incidents, your stories with them. That's what you remember. And so the most beautiful part of life is, our family, whoever you call family. And so we need to forget this concept that, it's about me, it's about, what makes me happy. It's about us, because us will make us happy in reality at the end of the day. So yeah, I do believe that.
Yeah, I think the other thing is that if you see it a lot of times that these movements that are totally asking have made it a politicized these feminist movements, and especially if you see that we see it politically, abortion rights, some other rights, unnecessarily they are being politicized, even though Islam, in that, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, gives the opportunity for people that those who lives if are in danger, abortion is allowed. Although Islam does not forbid, I mean, sorry, Islam does not allow um, abortion just for the sake of it or for fun or for whatever, mistakes you thought you done or what may not be a mistake, but anyway, but you weren't being protected and you thought, oh, it happened, so now let's just go ahead and do the abortion.
Mm,
That is the case most of the time, but Islam says, okay, just think about your actions first.
mm,
And nowadays they have actually unnecessarily politicized these things. To me, and I think to most sensible people in the United States, probably should not be a no issue. It's pretty, common sense that if life is in danger, you protect that. And if it's not, then yeah, there may be some smaller given ways, some ways where maybe it is allowed for whatever reasons, maybe. Um, but I think that it's not very hard and fast or strict rule in that sense. You know.
Definitely. Yeah.
Ahmed, any thoughts on
Yeah, I mean,
these?
at the end of the day, Islam is a balanced religion, and it doesn't swing to one extreme or the other, but it gives just, a code of conduct that you live by and a balanced way of life. And so, even this subject that you just brought up about abortion, it's not, current day when you look in social media, the, conservative right or the far right, and then you look at the far left, and you see that, it's completely opposing. One side is saying that no matter what, you have the lady, the mother has the choice to abort whenever she wants to, and then on the other sides, it's like no, even if it's like incest or rape or something, you still can't do abortion. But Islam gives that middle ground where if the child is not developing, if the mother is going to be she's her life is in jeopardy because of the child. If XYZ reason, incest or rape or whatever, for these reasons, definitely there can be abortion. So it gives a balanced way, but then also admonishes regarding your actions, like you said, that you should be aware that everything has an equal reaction, and also that you have to there's going to be consequences for that, and so to keep that in mind, 100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
Ahmed, do you have to say a few things?
No, I agree. I think to be fair to some of these movements, like they had back, in the days started when addressing real life problems that people had. It's just that over time, I think things get politicized and then they start going to the extremes.
Yeah.
And like Marissa mentioned beautifully that Islam uh, provides the middle path. Something that when I grew up studying Islam, a lot of emphasis was on they call it in Urdu Mian Ravin, like middle ground. And I always used to wonder, like, how is that applicable to my life? Because, when I was younger, it didn't really, maybe I didn't observe or it didn't apply that much. But I always wondered, but I've noticed in the last 10, 15 years of my life that there's a lot of situations where it is the essential thing to have. So just wanted to add that. So yeah, thanks for the insightful answers and discussion.
So you mentioned about it's allowed, and we're going to have a different topic on. I'm planning to do another topic about capital punishment where it is allowed and all that
Mhm.
in the coming weeks or so. Why it is allowed and what is the topic? But just to roughly briefly touch about on rape, you said that it's allowed. Abortion is allowed in rape and incest. I can understand, yes, of course, but in rape as well, it is allowed for abortion. Or is it the choice of a woman whether she wants to keep it or not? Well, usually
I
people
mean,
don't.
at the end of the day, I don't think anyone's gonna force a lady to abort a child. If she
Yeah.
wants to keep the child, I think that's her decision. However, the allowance is there in those situations, and we do have precedents for that. Yeah.
All right, Ahmed, you have another questions that you want to ask? Yeah.
Yeah, and thanks very much, Mansa, for your detailed answers and discussion on this topic, and covering some of the nuances as well. And to kind of follow up on some of the discussion that we've already had, just had a question. The hijab and modest dress are frequently regarding hijab, and the hijab and modest dress are frequently the focal points in Western media. How do Muslim women redefine the narrative around modesty as an expression of personal agency and spiritual liberation rather than oppression? So you could shed some
Yeah.
light on
The
that.
word, I guess what you're asking is that in modern days, in the suburbs of Washington, D.C. or any big city,
Mm-hmm.
the Muslim women, how do they, you know, ex how do they express themselves in modest way with all the peer pressure, the social pressure that we inherit, and the hijab is being seen as oppressed uh, way of
Definitely.
life.
Yeah. No, I commend and applaud our Muslim ladies that, are not ashamed, are not, prey to inferiority complex, and they're strong in practicing what their faith teaches them, even though the society around them might think differently. Ultimately, this is a question that I think a Muslim lady should be answering, and there's so many Muslim ladies that have answered this very beautifully. And I usually try to, stay in the back and let the actual one that's practicing in that way to answer the question. And our ladies are amazing at answering this question. But just to say a few words on my end as well about this, who says freedom is in wearing the least amount of clothes, right? Who made that assumption, right?
Right.
The thing is that we as a human species, as we have evolved, we've started to cover up ourselves even more. And so showing intellectual advancement or more consciousness, uh, when we see in history or our species, it's when we start to cover ourselves up more. And so, I mean, ultimately, it's liberation from objectification. It's, there's so much studies done, so many studies done on this subject of especially girls, teenage years. And, with social media, with TV, with movies, with just the world around them, that there's a body image, there's a certain look that a girl has to achieve to be considered, pretty. And if they're not there, and honestly speaking, very few ladies are to that level, because it's unnatural actually that they've made the beautiful concept of a lady, and so it hurts them. That you obviously fall to this pressure, you fall to depression. There are studies done about the rates of suicide going up, and all of this is because of an unnatural body image or look that a girl just can't have, because it's not reality. And so, again, if you follow these dictates which God has given us, especially in Islam, about modesty, about covering up, about not having to show yourself and to be objectified or to be looked at in that way, it saves you from all these other, issues that come up in society. Be it, physical harm, yes, one way, but also mental and emotional stress is very important, I think. So ultimately, you should be able to choose, right? So who is anyone to tell someone that you should wear less clothing? Just like they would be angry at us if we went around saying that, okay, no, you should wear more clothing. It goes the same way. No one has the right to tell someone that you should not wear a hijab or a burqa or whatever it is. It's a lady's choice. It's according to her law or her guidance. And if she chooses to do so, it's up to her. And so we shouldn't stand up for someone that doesn't want us to stand up for them, right? So I don't even understand why there's people, and even some laws are even enacted in places that say, the burqa or hijab is not allowed. So I mean that's one extreme, and we should kind of to try to stay away from that, I think. But again, we spoke about this last time as well, that it's not just about the ladies. Men also have a hijab. They also have a veil, and they're actually addressed first in the Holy Quran, our guidance. Ultimately, this is the spiritual identity of a lady, and it's the lady saying that I am a Muslim, and my priorities are grounded in that divine guidance. So that's just a few words I would say on this subject.
Nasser, do you have any follow-up comments or
No,
questions?
but you're right about this hijab thing. I think we should have had somebody, but we didn't have any lady available for this program who could answer it for us in a much better, to give the on all fairness, to have her opinion in this program. But hopefully, those who will be watching and they are hijab, they have something to say. They are most welcome to express their opinion on this program. We welcome them. But yeah, absolutely. I think the other thing I want to change this on the hijab thing is that don't you think, and Ahmed, you can jump in as well, that just like anything related to women's rights in Western countries, they have politicized so much everything. We just talked about abortion rights previously. Same thing if you look at the flip side towards Muslim and the hijab unnecessarily. And Murbi Osama Rahman has just mentioned about the hijab ban or burqa ban, whatever you call that, in certain institutions or countries, like, for example, France has done it. And I think they're, if I'm not wrong, some other Western countries have also done it, except Spain and a few others. But don't you think it's a bit um, the government or the institutions are actually unnecessarily interjecting in the privacy matters of the people, specifically singling out a particular religion or their practices? Don't you think it's a bit discriminatory in that sense? Nobody talks about that. What do you think, Ahmed?
My short answer is yes, they have. I mean, there's no other.
Brutal, it's brutally honest, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there's no other way to describe it, because yeah, they have politicized it, and that's the only way I can kind of think of it. It's politically advantageous for them to kind of profit off of, this whole
Gain votes.
marginalization of, community. And it's not just, in certain other respects, the politicians have marginalized other communities as well. But this is, yeah, one of the very politically contentious points that, yeah, some of the, Western governments have exploited. So yeah.
Yeah, to gain more of a political leverage against the immigration and all that kind of things, and then blame it on Muslims. I mean, I'm just being brutal here, but not really, but I'm being honest.
Yeah.
If you see it in the media, this is what it's portrays all the time. So anyway, I think yeah, that's all I have to ask, and I think it's on a as a closing remarks, I would say that I think it's a time that the politicians and other leaders who are elected for the benefits of the people, or they run the election for, on this notion, or they advertise this, that they are serving the people of the country, that includes the United States or any other country. Yet they are dividing the country, dividing the people on the basis of race, religion, especially, and then ethnicity, because immigration obviously involves not only race but also ethnicity or nationality. So I think we should not, should always take justice uphold and humanity at first place, so we can tackle these questions and into a genuine, situations can be addressed genuinely rather than politicize and then create problems for those communities. I hope we all agree to this.
Yeah, great.
Yep, definitely.
Thank you for your time. We will wrap it up. It's almost time for us to wrap it up here. And we'll be back in our next program with different topics related to the same, how Islam can be seen fit in the year 2026, as well as beyond in the United States. And this is our main theme. It's going to be continuing, and we'll have different guests coming in and different topics. We'll be discussing that. Thank you again for your time,
Yep.
and really appreciate
Peace.
that.
Thank you so
See
much.
you next time.
Thank you. Thank you very much. See you, everyone. Thank you.